How's it going, everyone? I hope you're having a really good day. So, as expected, instead of demanding more freedom of speech and more open dialogue and honest discussions in the wake of the Christchurch shooting, the establishment is now demanding that even more people get censored, and anyone who says things that the ruling class establishment doesn't like should ultimately be removed from the internet. One such member of the ruling class establishment is Max Kozlowski of the Sydney Morning Herald, who is now essentially demanding that more be done about places like Gab that offer people their God-given right to freedom of speech. It's very upset that people who have been banned by Twitter and Facebook are now able to go and speak freely on Gab. Let's have a look at it. Two Australian far-right ringleaders banned by Twitter have urged supporters to follow them to shadowy message service Gab, a free speech, he says free speech in inverted commas there, alternative notorious for its use by extremists. Immediately he's framing free speech as a bad thing. Somehow people who have been censored by Twitter and Facebook, these massive social media tech companies who control the vast majority of communication on the internet, people who have been banned by them shouldn't be allowed to speak at all. They shouldn't be allowed to go to Gab. It's somehow Gab's fault that they have people who are extremists because they allow freedom of speech. And what exactly is meant by extremists? Like, is extreme generosity a bad thing now? Or, I'm not sure. I think that term extremist is now being used by the ruling class establishment just as a slander, like racist and white supremacists, which are both ultimately just anti-white racial slurs. But he continues. Blair Cottrell and Neil Erickson, two men with criminal convictions, they always mention this, obviously, because they need to attack the character, who have preached neo-Nazi values on social media over recent years, have become markers in the debate over whether Facebook, Twitter and Google should do more to deal with extremist accounts on their platforms. I'll just quickly note, neither of these people have ever actually preached neo-Nazi values, so that is a flat-out lie from Mr. Kozlowski there. Count himself lucky that he's not getting sued for defamation because the media has done this repeatedly. But here he's talking about a debate between these big tech companies whether they should do more to stop extremist accounts on their platforms. Essentially, he wants to silence anyone who disagrees, and that is just horrendous. While Prime Minister Scott Morrison and opposition leader Bill Shorten are heaping pressure on the digital giants to change their systems or face government regulation, the growing popularity of lesser-known platforms like Gab raises questions about whether the clampdown goes far enough. Wow. In other words, again, people have been kicked off these massive social media tech companies because they say things that the ruling class disagrees with and doesn't want them saying. So the government should go and regulate places like Gab in order to stop them from speaking on Gab as well. They won't be happy until the internet is entirely cleansed of anybody that they disagree with. This is the exact attitude that created both the Christchurch shooter and Anders Breivik. Both of them were created by the fact that the ruling class establishment slanders, attacks, and silences anyone who dares say things that they don't like, especially about immigration, multiculturalism, and Islam. It is that exact attitude that is going to essentially guarantee another attack. The ruling class establishment are giving us this. They are creating the situation. They're building the polarization, and they're causing people to resort to violence because they don't have an outlet to express themselves and to express their opinions. We need freedom of speech. We want peace. We want dialogue. And that means the ruling class has to listen to people who have grievances, or at least let them speak and let the audience decide what they want to listen to. This is how freedom of speech works. This is how liberty works. The opposite is tyranny, and tyranny is force. We want no part of that. We want a free society for all time. Gab, which describes itself as a platform that places people and free speech first, said it has no qualms with hosting Mr. Cottrell and Mr. Erickson and will only limit their activity in line free speech laws in the United States. editor should have put a with in there. Congratulations, and good on Gab. That's what they do. It doesn't just describe itself as a free speech platform. It is a free speech platform. That's what they're upset about. They're upset that all these people who they thought they could just censor and silence still have somewhere to speak. And they'll always have somewhere to speak, because if they're not doing it on Gab, if they get banned by Gab, another site will come up, or they'll do it anonymously, or they'll go out into the street. This is the problem. This is why we need freedom of speech. Gab is completely viewpoint neutral, a spokesman said. It is the place of law, not of private tech companies, to determine the extent of acceptable speech. Damn right. It is not up to private tech companies like Google, Twitter, or Facebook, or even idiots at the Sydney Morning Herald or the ABC or any of these other fake news mainstream outlets to decide what is or isn't acceptable speech. That is up to the law and only the law, and that is natural law, not this idiotic tyrannical regulation by governments acting against the interests and the will of the people. It is up to the law, and that is natural law, law that has to be discovered. Julie Nathan, a research director at the Executive Council of Australian Jewry and author of an extensive annual report into anti-Semitism in Australia, said Gab has been the solution for deplatformed far-right for more than a year.
Gab is a site where you can post pretty much anything you like,
she said.
You can even post words or images calling for killing people on the basis of their race.
A flat-out, bald-faced, defamatory lie, and if she was capable of shame, I'd say she should be ashamed. Let's go and have a look at Gab's community guidelines, shall we? Here, in the community guidelines, threats and terrorism. Users are prohibited from calling for the acts of violence against others, promoting or engaging in self-harm, and/or acts of cruelty, threatening language, or behaviour that clearly, directly, and incontrovertibly infringes on the safety of another user or individuals. We may also report the users to local and/or federal law enforcement as per the advice of our legal counsel. Gab follows the US Department of State's definitions of terrorism and lists the foreign terrorist organisations along with the Federal Bureau of Investigation's prescribed list of terrorist groups, organisations, and/or individuals. So well done, Julie Nathan, on proving to absolutely everyone in the world, or everyone who's watching this video, or who read that article, that you cannot be trusted, and if they ever see your name on an article or quoted somewhere, they know that you are a liar. It finishes up with some wonderfully ominous news. The Morrison government will host a meeting on Tuesday with social media companies, internet providers, and security agencies to address how platforms were used and abused in the New Zealand tragedy. In other words, Scott Morrison wants to sit down with all these companies and work out ways that he can censor the internet even more. My only hope is that security agencies such as ASIO, who I have heard aren't actually all that stupid and actually know what's going on, I believe. I really hope ASIO go out and tell Scott Morrison that the worst thing that he could possibly do right now is censor people. The best thing he could do is bring some nationalists, some people talking about immigration into the forefront, give us positions in the media, or at least let the media come and talk to us, get them to ask us questions, they can debate our ideas, but we need to have this discussion. We need peaceful dialogue. We need freedom of speech. We need less censorship, because if they do go out and censor more, all it's going to do is going to isolate people, and it's going to give them the idea that they have no other choice, and they'll ultimately go out and do something absolutely stupid like what this fool in New Zealand has done. I hope you enjoyed the video. Share the truth around, and I'll see ya when I see ya.